imagine. In fact, can I share one other thing with you that Guruji said? I remember being on a TRM, a teacher's course with Gurudev, and somebody said to Guruji, you know, feeling great devotion, they said, Guruji, what did we do to deserve to be here with you? And his response was, you didn't do anything to earn it. If this could be earned, it wouldn't be worth anything. This is simply divine grace. One time, I had a dental procedure done that I was really nervous about. And, you know, of course, we always pray to Guruji. And so I was so grateful after the procedure that it was so easy and painless and effortless that I'm driving home on the highway at 70 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. I wasn't speeding, that's the speed limit. And I was blowing kisses to the picture of Guruji, and I was listening to a knowledge tape. And all of a sudden, the car started shaking like this. And I thought I had a flat tire, which it turned out not to be. But it turned out that something malfunctioned with the wheels and the steering, and the vehicle that I was driving jackknifed at 70 miles an hour across 3 lanes of traffic into the path of an 18-wheel oil tanker that hit me with such force that the oil tanker turned on its side. And in the US, they have these heavy concrete meridians between northbound and southbound traffic, so accidents don't spill out into the other direction. But there was such force in the truck that not only did it break open and spill oil all over the highway, but that it actually broke through that meridian into oncoming traffic. And the van that I was driving started flipping, not surprisingly. And I started smelling asphalt. I didn't know exactly what was happening. You know, when you're in an accident, it just happens so quick. But I realized that I was hitting my head on the top of the car. And so I realized that the car must be flipping. And I was concerned that the car might flip and hit a tree, and you know, you could die, because people die when they hit trees going at those speeds. And I realized that I was in big trouble. And so I just, like, the mind was like in slow motion. I said, okay, what do I do? And it was obvious, just pray to Guruji. And so I prayed. I said, Guruji, I am in trouble. I need protection. Help me now. And one more flip, and the van came down on what used to be the wheels, because all the wheels had been torn off the car. I can actually show you a picture later if you wish. And every window in the car had been completely blown out, except for the window right by my head. And the glass had shattered. It was like fine, like dust. Every window, the front window, the back windows, every window but the one right by my head. And I realized that while the van was flipping and it was rolling, the reason I was smelling asphalt is that my head was maybe 8 feet from the highway. And for whatever reason, that window didn't blow out. It was still there. And, you know, the van stopped. And, so as the van was flipping, and the first thing I said, Guruji, I am in trouble. I need protection. Help me now. And then I thought, okay, what do I do next? And I realized there's nothing else to do. And there was no fear. And I realized after the fact, looking back at it, that when we have a guru who protects us, there's when the divine love is there, because I was in so much gratitude, there's no room for, there's not one iota of space that fear can take up. I did not have 1 ounce of fear the entire time. And then when the van, you know, when my vehicle stopped and I opened my eyes, first of all, I was facing oncoming traffic, and it was a 5-lane highway in my direction, and all the traffic had stopped. Miraculously, nobody hit me, even though the van had completely turned around and was facing oncoming traffic. Nobody hit me. And the driver of the oil rig that had broken through, nobody hit him. We were both divinely protected. And when I opened my eyes, it was July 15th, 2005. I remember the date very clearly. And I opened my eyes, and it was summer in Florida. And I opened my eyes, and the sky was beautiful, and the palm trees were waving. And I remember having the sensation of feeling so comfortable. And the first thought I had was, oh, this van is so comfortable. My next car should be a Toyota also. And then I realized two things simultaneously. The first thing that I realized is, oh, this is what Guruji talks about when we're in being in the big mind, being in pure awareness, the comfort level. When he talks, there's a tape, I was actually in India when he filmed it, called What is Meditation? And he says, you know, the king in his expensive bed, and the businessman and the queen on her throne, who is comfortable? That the only true comfort is when we're established in the self, when we're connected with the being. And at that moment, when I opened my eyes and I looked, and everything was so beautiful, and I felt so comfortable, the thought came in my head, this is what Gurudev is talking about. This is the true comfort in life. And then, of course, I realized, you know, you were just in a major accident. Who knows what happened to the gas tank? This car could explode. You better get out now. And so I opened the door and I got out of the van, and I'm standing in the middle of, you know, a 10-lane highway. And so I walk over to the side, and immediately an emergency vehicle, an ambulance, pulls over. And the only thing that happened was that my pearl mala broke from the accident, and I was holding it in my hand. And the ambulance driver looked at me and said, "Were you praying the whole time?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "That's what saved you. You should be dead." And there's another little bit to the story that, and nobody could believe how I had walked away. So they took me to the hospital, and they strapped me on a board. They said, "You could have internal bleeding. This is a serious accident." So they strapped me on this board, and they took me to the hospital. And then the police came in to get the report because, you know, it had closed the highway, you know, it had completely closed the highway in both directions. And when I told him the story, he said, "Well, there has to be something else." He said, "What are you forgetting to tell me?" And I said, "I'm not forgetting to tell you anything." And he said, "Well, what you told me, you couldn't be alive." And so I just told him again. And that was that. Everybody was saying, "Well, you can't be alive." But one thing that was really cute was that Gurudev was going to be coming soon. And in the back of my car, I must have had like 200 flyers for Gurudev's talk. And they were strewn, because all the windows broke, they were strewn all over the highway. And everybody who stopped got a flyer for Gurudev's talk. And the end of the story is the next day, I sent a friend to go to, and so what they told me at the hospital, they took x-rays, and the only thing that had happened is I had, well, a couple of black and blue marks and a broken mala. And on the side of my nose, there had been a hairline fracture of the bone in my nose from when the airbag hit me. And so I sent my friend the next day to go to the van to get my belongings out of the van. And he called me from the station where the van had been towed by the police. And he put the guy on the phone, and the guy said, "I have been pulling cars off the highway for 25 years. There is no way that anybody survived the crash of this car. No way. So, you know, I'm not releasing the possessions in this car to some fictitious guy." And I had to convince him that, yes, I was really alive, and that these really were my possessions. I had to photograph because they had the name of the, you know, the people who the car belonged to and all that. So I sent him my driver's license, and I had him call me back on my phone so he could see that, yes, it was me. And then when my friend went to the car, he went into the van, and when I got out of the van, I wasn't touched at all. But when he went into the van, he got bloody just going through the van, because there was this glass shavings everywhere except by the side of my head. And then he went and he picked up the picture of Gurudev that I had been blowing kisses to. And when he picked it up, he said that two things, that it was like 5,000 degrees. It was like picking up a live coal. It was so hot that he had to immediately let it go. And the other thing he noticed, that where I had broken, where the bone in my nose had broken, there was a thick crease, an indent in the photo. And everywhere that I had a black and blue mark in this area, there was a mark on the photo of Gurudev. And then, you know, so he finished gathering my possessions, and then he thought, oh, Ronnie probably wants this picture too. You know, so he said, yeah, I must have been imagining it. And he went to pick it up again, and again he had to drop it. It was on fire. And I realized that Gurudev had protected me and had taken on all of everything that could have happened. He absorbed the injury that could have come to me. And, you know, as they say, when you come on the spiritual path, only that amount of karma that is absolutely necessary to satisfy the debt you experience. So rather than having your head shot off, a bullet will come and take off your hat. And that's exactly what happened. I was so protected.
Ronnie, you were there when the Washington, D.C. Center was inaugurated.
Yeah. That was another learning, which you know, was again a clear example of when you follow fun, misery follows, and when you follow knowledge, fun follows you. Because what happened is when the center was inaugurated, the full-timers, I think there were 30 of us at the time who were full-time in the United States, and we were invited to stay at the center with Gurudev when the center was inaugurated. And of course, you know, they packed us in rooms like sardines, but who cares? We were happy. And I got to the center a couple hours before Guruji's flight, and I was feeling very off-center and feverish about wanting to be with Guruji, and all this garbage was just chewing in my mind. And then somebody came running through the center saying, Gurudev's flight is arriving in an hour. Gurudev's flight is arriving in an hour. We're all going to go and meet him at the airport. And I got up and got dressed to go. And then I thought, you know, I'm not going to go feeling all this garbage that I'm going to dump on him, because Guruji knows our feelings, our emotions. My responsibility is to be with the knowledge and be what is, and, you know, and apply the knowledge like an ointment, like a balm. Just apply the knowledge and get out of this funky state, because I didn't want to pollute the air that Guruji was in. And I knew, you know, what's the point of taking my body while the consciousness is miserable, while the mind is miserable? So I sat in the center and I went through all of the knowledge points, and, you know, and Guruji says, you know, you go deeply into this, and then went into all of the sensations in the body, and I did everything, and then I was asking myself questions, and I asked myself, what is it that you want from Guruji anyway? You know, I mean, how many times does he have to show you that you belong to him? And so the thought that popped into that intellect, into the head, was, I want Guruji to engage in senseless banter with me like he does with some other people, because he hadn't done that with me. And I thought, Ronnie, do you hear yourself? Do you hear how ego-based this is? Do you hear how insecure this is? And I felt the sensation in the body, and I was able to let it go. And so when Gurudev came into the center, I was right there. And he did a satsang. And in the satsang, you know, he went straight up to do satsang. And, you know, you could obviously hear the commotion. I went in and I was in the satsang. And all of this love was just pouring out of me and pouring out of me. And I felt so settled and in gratitude again. And then the next morning, I was in my room, you know, doing some work, waiting for Guruji, and all of a sudden you hear all this running up and down the wooden stairs in the center. So you knew that Guruji opened his door and everybody was running to be with Guruji. And I go running up the flights of stairs to Guruji's room. And, you know, his apartment in the ashram in the center in DC is not that big. So I turn my head and I just like this peek over the side of the door frame into the door, because I could only get my head into the room. I couldn't get my body into the room without like stepping on somebody. So I peek my head in, just so grateful to see his face. And in the middle of a conversation with everybody else, he stops and he looks at me and he says, "Ah, Ronnie Newman, you're ever young. You should be Ronnie Youngman." And he's just joking that senseless banter so sweetly. And that entire weekend, he would do little things like that. You know, when I completely let go and surrendered and was, you know, just with it and following knowledge, the fun was incredible. And for example, a group of media from some television station in India came to the DC center to interview Guruji about some heated topic that was going on in India at the time. And the room again, where they were interviewing Guruji, was so packed that I'm a skinny little girl. So, and I do yoga, so I'm fairly flexible. So the only place in the room with Guruji, and of course everybody wants to be in the room with Guruji, the only place was under the tripod of the camera, from the camera crew, from the radio, the television station. So I made my way in and I sat quietly like this in the little space behind, underneath the video. And when the interview was done, and there was like, 200 people in the room. When the interview was done, Guruji just looked at me sitting under the camera and he said, "Oh, Ronnie, why did you make me answer all of these silly questions from these silly men?" So he just always comes with such sweetness and such goodness and such affection. And when we follow knowledge and we do our part, it's like we go this far. When we give 100%, he gives 1,000,000,000%. And it was just the sweetest thing you can imagine.
Ronnie, what is Gurudev for you?
Honestly, Gurudev is an avatar. Gurudev is the incarnation of all that is good and noble and kind and powerful and magical and respectful and playful and omniscient and unending energy. Like, in physics, we talk about the quantum mechanical ground state. And you know how Guruji has said that when you read Vedic scripture and you read the quantum physics, that the words are the same. In quantum physics, they talk about that the home of all the laws of nature is pure potentiality, pure orderliness, unbounded, infinite energy, infinite dynamism amid infinite rest. And that's what Gurudev is. He models for us what creation is. He models for us the kindness of God. He is a living symbol to me of the goodness of God, and that no matter what I see in the world, no matter what trials and tribulations I face, and I've had a lot of them in my lifetime, that the divine is good, the divine is kind, and that everything that happens for my best and highest good. Probably in 2016, it was the year that Gurudev was given the award by the government of Colombia for negotiating the peace accord between the FARC rebels and the government. And I was sitting and having dinner with my mother, who was 93 at the time. And a blessing that she was still very coherent and, had her mental faculties. And we were sitting and having dinner, and I get a call from Bhushan saying that Gurudev is flying from Colombia to the Boone Ashram, where he was going to be doing a course in a few days, and then he was making a stop in Miami, and that Gurudev's body was very tired because he'd been pushing nonstop country to country to country to country, and that he was going to rest overnight in the hotel, and that only the core devotees could I tell. Because didn't want a lot of people around Gurudev. That Gurudev just needed to rest. And so he said, and he's coming tomorrow, as happened. So I put down the phone, and my mother says, what was the call? And I tell her that, Gurudev is coming. And my mother says to me, I want to come. And I said to her, Mom, I said, I don't think I can bring you. I said, we're just told that only the core people, because he doesn't want a lot of people around him. And I said, how can I bring my mother if I'm telling other teachers they can't bring their mothers? And she said, yes, you can, which was very out of character for my mother, because my mother is very modest. Although my mother is a powerhouse in and of herself, and she is the person who connected Gurudev with the top Jewish leadership in America, because my mother is a powerful social activist and is in who's who in world Judaism. So, and the way that she set up the first meeting was she got on the phone with the most influential Jewish leader in North America, And she gave a little preamble that we had prepared about Guruji. And she said, I'm putting my daughter Ronnie on the phone. She's going to tell you about somebody who's a great friend to all the people of the world. And you need to hear what she has to say, and you need to see him. And she put me on the phone, and I told them about Gurudev, and the meeting was set up. So, and she's always been like that, doing whatever she can for Gurudev. So, and just for some reason, it just felt okay. And I went with my intuition, thank God, rather than my scientific intellect. I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to bring you. And so the next day, we're in the suite, the presidential suite that had been comped by the hotel for Gurudev. And we're sitting in the suite, and Gurudev is in his room, and all of us are just sitting outside meditating. My mother meditated also. And then Gurudev comes out of the room, and we all stand up. And my mother, also in her finest clothes, she stands up. She had a walker, and she stands up with her walker when Gurudev comes in the room. And as Gurudev is walking past all of us toward the couch where his asana was, he turns and he comes back to my mother, because at this meeting with top Jewish leadership, my mother also had clearance through the Jewish organization to be there. And so she was there, and she met Gurudev then, and she also had gone to 2 of his talks and met him there. And so he turned and he walked back to my mother, and he put his hand on her hand, and he said, it's been such a long time since I've seen you. And then he turned back and started walking to the couch, and then he turned back and came back to her again. And he said, but actually, I see you every day. I watch over you. And at that moment, I felt so complete. In such gratitude, how Gurudev is so amazing and so caring and so loving of every human being. And it's not just my mother that he does this for. This is just what he does for everybody. And I just, the feeling of being so complete was amazing. And as if that wasn't enough, I also learned another lesson, that in the presence of pure, divine, unconditional love, all limitations drop, and the pure joy of our existence comes forward. Because my mother was a very humble person and very timid, and would never advance herself for anything. But as Gurudev was leaving, and again, there's like 10 of us in the room, 12 of us in the room, she goes up to Gurudev. She goes in her walker, and she very quickly goes up to Gurudev, and she says to him, Guruji, can I sing you a song? Which is like so out of character. And then she starts singing this old Carpenter song, why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? Just like me, they long to be close to you. On the day that you were born, the angels got together and decided to create a dream come true. And she sang that song for Guruji. And he gave me an immeasurable gift. He gives all of us the same. And sometimes you see it, and sometimes you don't. And this was a moment where it was unmistakably evident.
Ronnie, so many teachers and volunteers are watching this now, and many will watch maybe after a few years also. From your experience, what learning you would like to share with them?
That we just really need to get out of our own way and to realize that the intellect is just 2-dimensional, and creation is at least 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional. And with this knowledge, if we hold to the knowledge and we repose in the self, life is unlimited. Life is magical. God loves fun. And it's our responsibility to grab every moment of joy, to spread the energy of joy and fullness everywhere. And it's as much a responsibility as everything else on our laundry list.
Ronnie, if Gurudev is there in front of you now, physically, how would you like to express this love and gratefulness towards him?
Bowing to his feet. There's no words. No words. Just continuing, and the seva is a gift, that it gives me the opportunity to give something back. And as you know, what can a candle give the sun? And I know that. You know, he's the sun and I'm a candle. I know that. But the opportunity to do seva, in whatever way it manifests, for me it's research, documenting the effects of our programs. For other people, it's whatever their gift is. And we're all the beads on his mala. And just the gratitude that there's never anything that I can do that will be repayment for what I've been given. Yet it's our nature to give. And I'm so grateful that he accepts all of us to give in our own peculiar ways, because we're all so peculiar. And as he says, we're a collection of mixed nuts. And I'm so grateful that he lovingly embraces all of us without judgment. We couldn't,
Ronnie,
there's not a bigger blessing in creation. Jai Gurudev.
Ronnie, you just mentioned about your research, and this is how you express your devotion, and you're contributing to this movement by proving its technique, by revalidating its technique with your research. So can you tell a little bit about the research you were involved in and what's going on with the research now?
Oh, yeah. So we did the first research on Sahaj Samadhi meditation. And again, it's just a sankalpa that creates the research, because I was at a teacher's meeting with Banu Didi, and she said, we need research on Sudarshan, on Sahaj Samadhi meditation. And I thought, okay, we need research on Sahaj. How are we going to do this? And the next day, like within a week, I don't know if it was the next day, within a week, I got a call from a psychiatry department at a medical school wanting to do something for seniors with depression, because it's one of the most difficult depressions to treat, and it puts them at risk for dying early and heart disease and all this other thing. And they wanted to do research on the Kriya, and I said, no, it's best we do research on Sahaj. So the long and short of it is that we did this study on Sahaj Samadhi meditation, and what we did is we took a group of people who had already been undergoing the gold standard of medical treatment for depression, drugs and psychotherapy, and they still were clinically depressed. And so what we did is we randomized them to continue with the gold standard in the Western world, or to simply add Sahaj Samadhi meditation to what they were already doing. And what we found was that the response rate for people who added Sahaj was 3 times, their cure or their remission from depression was 3-fold greater than the best that the Western world could offer them. It was unbelievable. I mean, I found it believable. People were blown away. And so this research was accepted to be presented at the World Psychiatry Congress in Berlin. And out of 900 entries for research poster presentations, our research was awarded the top prize, first place. So the world is beginning to recognize the benefits of Sahaj. And since then, more and more studies have gone on. We're looking at treatment-resistant depression now. There's another study that was done in Europe, in Italy, I'll just mention, with Sudarshan Kriya and depression. And in that study, they took people who, after half a year of the gold standard of treatment, still were not in remission. They still were suffering from depression and anxiety. And that group, they taught Sudarshan Kriya. And within 1 month, after half a year of not being successful, within 1 month, 98% of the people with clinical anxiety were in remission, and 65% of the people with depression, clinical depression, were in remission. And then 6 months later, when they were tested again, 98% persisted. And in the group that had the Depression, it bumped up from 65% remission to 80% remission, meaning the results grow stronger over time. And as if that weren't powerful enough, the researchers also looked at those people who continued taking drugs, allopathic medication, and those who, for whatever reason, because of the side effects or because they didn't want to be on medication, for whatever reason, they had stopped taking their medication. And there was no difference between the group that continued their medication and the group that dropped their medication, suggesting that the medication did nothing for them, whereas Sudarshan Kriya created 98 to 80% remission rate. That's phenomenal. And it's so needed in the world today because the Western model of drugs and therapy is too labor intensive and too cost intense to be sustained in the world. It's remarkable. And currently we're also doing research now. We were just funded to do research on first responders in Canada through a Department of Psychiatry for the effect of the online program. And thousands of doctors are enrolling in that program. So that research is going on. We're also doing research on pain because pain is really important. There's research going on treating addiction because in the United States, I don't know if it's throughout the whole world, but in the United States particularly, there's an opioid epidemic, which is killing more people than the war in Vietnam. And there's really nothing that's working very well. And so there's also powerful research going on right now on treating and preventing addictions. We have research going on with homeless youth. We have research going on in what's called treatment-resistant depression. With seniors, we have research on PTSD going on. All of this is going on, and that's just the research that I'm working on. And post-traumatic stress disorder as well. And that's, as I say, just my research. Dr. Sapala at Yale, research was just accepted for publication where she compared Sudarshan Kriya to mindfulness and also to emotional processing techniques and to a control group. And so there's there's over 100 published studies now on Sudarshan Kriya in peer-reviewed journals. And a lot more is coming out down the pike. I myself this month working with Stanford Medical School and University of Toronto Medical School are putting in grant applications on a regular basis. Dr. Darga Armani at UCLA Center is putting in brain research there. So the research, what's happening? Modern medical science is rediscovering and validating the ancient health practices that have come down for millennia through this lineage. And the more science expands its understanding of mind-body medicine, things like I explained in the beginning of how our emotions are not in our head, but everywhere in our body, the stronger the understanding of mind-body medicine, the tighter the link between ancient spiritual practices and modern medical science becomes. And Sudarshan Kriya, harnessing the power of the breath, is one of the most powerful and effective ways to impact the entire mind-body complex, because the breath is the only function of our autonomic or automatic nervous system that we have some control over. It's a powerful window into the entire mind-body complex that doesn't exist anywhere else. So again, our gratitude to Gurudev for bringing it in a systematic manner so that scientists like me can study it, because unless it's taught by certified teachers in a systematic manner, we can't be convinced that the results can be generalized anywhere else. But Gurudev's work, we can generalize that to the entire globe, which is what we're doing now.
Thank you, Ronnie, for the wonderful work you are doing and for giving so much time for this interaction today. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And we all enjoyed the interaction.
Jai Gurudev.